Hello, Courtney. I'm Marilyn. Thank you so much for getting a reading with me and entrusting me to explain to you the inner workings of your soul. And so the birth chart is essentially a snapshot of the heavens the moment you take your first breath. It's divided up into 12 houses and split between 4 angles. Each one of the 12 houses is represented by a zodiac sign, starting with Aries, ending with Pisces. So the 4 angles of the chart each represent a part of your life. The ascendant is the first angle, which would be around 9 o'clock on a regular clock, and it represents your identity. It's who you are on the surface. It's how you communicate with people that you don't know. It's the mask you put on. When you go out into the world, it's the front door of your chart. On one side of the ascendant is the first house, which is but it's our whole self-identity. It's how people see us. It's how we express ourselves in the world. The other side of the ascendant is the 12th house, which represents our subconscious, how we merge into the collective. It's the part of the chart that the energy is repressed. It's not easy for us to access. So when you have a planet on this side of the ascendant in the 12th house, it indicates that this energy is the most dominant in your expression, though it is something that happens beyond your conscious awareness. So you have your rising sign in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. It is the sign of the communicator. It's the sign of duality. There's a very youthful energy about a Gemini rising and a very constant in motion, constant thinking, constant communicating. So you have Mars right here at the edge of your 12th house on the 12th house side of your ascendant. So to have Mars rising in Gemini, to have Mars in the 12th house. So Mars is our divine masculine energy. It's how we assert our passion. It's how we assert our aggression. It's how we respond to life. Having Mars in the 12th house, conjunct the ascendant, can give you a very short temper or an energy that comes out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? But it goes away just as fast. But also, depending on each person, that Mars energy might be repressed and you might take a very long time to respond to outside stimuli. You might be indecisive. You might say one thing, do another. Having Mars in the 12th house also indicates that there is a repressed anger or hurt around your communication, or feeling unheard as a child, or feeling unheard in general in life. And so taking that extra initiative to make sure that you're heard, but in ways that are beyond your control. You may have acted out when you were younger for attention, or still in adulthood, like do things that you don't realize that are cries for help that come from beyond anywhere that you can even access. And so having Mars in the 12th house conjunct the ascendant also gives you a very, might give you a more athletic build. Like I have Mars rising in Libra, and I definitely have a more stronger build as a female. So the ascendant in Gemini as well is, because your whole chart is ruled by Mercury, indicates that your mind, there's a duality aspect to your mind, that you are able to tap into both the right and the left side of the brain simultaneously. And this happens like beyond your conscious control. It's an air sign. It's a mutable air sign. And so communicating and being able to be heard is a big part of your identity and how you interact with the world. So moving on through the first house, the second house is our house of values. It's how we value what we have and how we value what we earn. You have your second house in Cancer, and you have Chiron in your second house. So Chiron represents the wounded healer, or the wound that we continually experience, so we may realize what it is about this wounding that makes us unique. Chiron's symbol is the key, so he represents how we gain access to that which has previously been restricted. Chiron bridges the past, Saturn, with the future, Uranus, with the limitations and the unfathomable. So to have Chiron in your second house in Cancer indicates that there is an inner wounding experience of feeling nurtured, or a lack of nurturing, or feeling that you did not have what others had, or that what you had was taken away, or what you had was conditional. And so when you have Chiron in the second house, working through issues of feeling lack or feeling not enough, being able to provide that for yourself through your self-care, through being receptive, through being able to tap into your divine feminine power and be able to fulfill and fill that woundedness of not having enough with your own self-care, with your own attention. And so the third house of the chart represents communication. You have your South Node in the third house in Cancer, and you have Jupiter in your third house in Leo. So the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon represent where we come from, what our most familiar way of interacting is, our most familiar way of behavior. The North Node of the moon is where our soul wants us to achieve, what our soul wants us to move forward to. It's not that we necessarily have to totally leave our South Node behind, but integrating them to work together in harmony. So you have your South Node in Cancer in the third house. So South Node in the third house means that you are familiar with getting involved in the pettiness of everyday life and getting emotionally involved in things that are connected to the mundane. The third house also has to do with siblings and cousins and people that we interact with in our family and in our neighborhood in general. So being involved in people's everyday business. The North Node in the ninth house in Capricorn means that your soul wants you to reach a place of self-mastery. Capricorn is the fucking boss. Capricorn in the ninth house doesn't have time to pay attention to everybody else's bullshit. Capricorn in the ninth house is finding a deep philosophical understanding of the broader sense of what it is to be alive, what it is to achieve, what it is to know our own power and our own ability to achieve in life, and to reach a place of complete understanding of the bigger picture and not getting caught up in the day-to-day petty details. And it's interesting because you have your North Node conjunct your natal Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius and your natal Mercury at 1 degrees Aquarius. And so having Saturn conjunct your North Node indicates that there's an inner sense of responsibility that you naturally have, and because it's tied in with your Mercury, a seriousness, an oppressiveness, a knowingness, like a Saturn gets a bad rap for being a fucking dick, but Saturn just wants us to have integrity. He wants us to have power. Saturn is the ruler over Capricorn, but Saturn conjunct Mercury might make you feel restricted in your communication or make you second guess yourself. And having Saturn conjunct your North Node initially will give you a deep sense of like insecurity or not being enough. But as you grow older, and once you hit your Saturn return within the next few years, reaching a place of self-mastery. And so leaving behind a sense of being emotionally involved in day-to-day things and saving those emotional reserves and putting them towards your achievements. Having Jupiter in the third house in retrograde. So Jupiter in retrograde. Okay. When planets go retrograde, they take us back into the past. And so when you're born with planets in retrograde, it indicates something that you're bringing over from a past life. Jupiter is the most benevolent planet of the zodiac. He represents our philosophical expansion, our ability to be abundant, our ability to believe that anything's possible. So when Jupiter is retrograde, all of those themes are internalized before they appear in manifestation. And so Jupiter retrograde in the third house might make you feel like... So Jupiter retrograde can manifest in two ways. Planets retrograde can either be the complete opposite of what their forward motion indicates, or just an internalized version. And so Jupiter always believes everything's possible. Maybe it takes you a while to really believe in yourself or believe in things are possible. And Jupiter in the third house, because the third house is connected with siblings, with Jupiter retrograde might mean that there was a feeling of separation between you, and even if you don't have like literal siblings, like you and your friends and you and like how you interact with others, or there might be an inner knowing that everything's going to be okay, and an inner knowing that everything has a purpose. So the second angle of the chart is the IC. It represents our foundation. It's our roots. It's our private life. It's where the soul enters the body. You have your IC in Leo. So having the IC in Leo means that there is... Okay, so Leo is ruled by the heart. And so to have the heart on the IC, the inner child on the IC, your deep roots connect you with the heart. Leo is royalty. Leo is courage. Leo is our creativity and our ability to illuminate. The fourth house is the house of the moon, the house of the mother. The IC is the cusp of the fourth house. Your fourth house moves into Virgo. And the IC is always opposite of the MC, which represents our public life and what we bring to the world and what everyone else sees. This is like what you see. This is what you feel deep down. So, and also because the IC is like our deep foundation, it does have a very similar energy to the moon, to our emotional needs, to what we need to feel secure. And so your IC goes from Leo into Virgo. And having Virgo on the IC means there's a sense of perfectionism or order, or there's something about your daily routines and your health that is how you find that stable foundation. That's where you go to feel secure. The fifth house is the house that's ruled by Leo. It's the house of creativity. It's the house of the inner child. It's the house of our... It also rules, like it also rules motherhood and childhood, but the fifth house is like how we allow ourselves, like where we allow ourselves to be creative and free. You have Pallas Athena and Virgo in the fifth house. Pallas Athena is the warrior goddess. She represents how we connect with the pineal gland, how we connect with our third eye, how we discover the pattern of cause and effect, how what we do and what we sow is what we reap. And Pallas Athena is also how we tap into our androgynous sense of autonomy and power. And that in Virgo, you do that through your skills, you do that through your service, you do that through being able to put things into use and do that in a creative way. The sixth house is the house that's ruled by Virgo. It's the house of health. It's the house of our routines. It's the house of our everyday routines and interactions. So you have your Ceres, Vertex, Moon, and Pluto all in the sixth house. So Ceres is how we feel nurtured and how we were nurtured. You have Ceres in Scorpio. So Ceres and Scorpio in the sixth house means that you're nurtured through, well, having Ceres in the sixth house means that you are nurtured by what you do, by your daily routines, by your work, by your health. Having your vertex in the sixth house indicates that in the vertex in Scorpio, people that come into your life, in your day-to-day life, completely alter you or change the way that things once were. It will be right around early November when the sun transits your vertex, and that can bring fated incidents into your life. And these interactions change you on a fundamental level and help you also evolve beyond. The vertex brings fated events and people that alter you in a way that you move beyond where you've been and where you've... It's like a vortex. It's like when you like enter a wormhole in altered dimensions. We'll get into that more when we talk. But you have your Moon and Pluto conjunct together in the sixth house in Scorpio. This is a very intense placement for you to have. First of all, Moon and Scorpio. Our Moon, it's our emotional self. It's what we need to feel secure. It's what we need. It's how we express our emotions. It's our most subconscious receptive area. Having moon in Scorpio, Scorpio is ruled by the Lord of the Underworld and the God of War. Scorpio is the sign of transformation. Scorpio is the sign where we are broken down to be reborn. So having moon in Scorpio gives you a very intense emotional nature, even though Gemini rising and sun in Aquarius can make you very emotionally detached on the surface. But deep down, you might be very, very deeply affected by day-to-day things. Like having your moon in your 6th house might mean that you constantly like feel sick, or that you run into health problems, or that there's like just a general feeling of like a process of self-destruction in your daily life. Having moon conjunct Pluto in Scorpio. Okay, so Pluto is a generational planet. Pluto entered into Scorpio in 1984. And so your generation, Pluto and Scorpio, Pluto represents how each generation evolves beyond the previous generation, how we transcend, how we break away past restrictions and build upon a new sense of power. Pluto is our power. But to have your moon and Pluto together in Scorpio means that you, on an emotional level, you feel the torment of your generation. And it's a difficult placement to have Pluto on your moon, because that generational torment of transformation and destruction becomes like a personal feeling for you. Like the outer planets, like Pluto is the last outer planet, like the outer planets represent the universal. And so when the universal is something next to something personal, which is your moon, like the universal becomes personal. And so you can feel things that aren't even fucking yours, and you're like, why do I feel this? And it's because your moon is connected with the collective. I have Pluto rising in Libra. So all of those Plutonian themes are very familiar to me, and I have some information that I'll send you further so you can have a deeper understanding like of what it means to like have Pluto dominant and to be a Plutonian person. And everybody has outer planets in their chart, but not everybody has outer planets next to something personal like their ascendant or their moon. And so people that have Pluto dominant are usually people of power. Like Beyonce has Pluto rising, Jay-Z has Pluto rising. Like Pluto is always an element of power. But unless you can have an ownership and understanding of that power, it's that much of that power has over you and your emotional reaction. So I'm glad that you got this reading so you could understand that better, because when I understood about my Pluto, it completely changed like how I saw myself. And your moon and your Pluto square your sun too, so this is even, it's just felt on such an intense level for you, and it's hard to process like this, the deep emotions of moon conjunct Pluto and Scorpio with the detachment of Aquarius sun. So this is the third angle of the chart. It's the descendant. It represents us in our relationships. It's the opposite of the ascendant. It's the cusp of the 7th house, the house of partnership. So you have your descendant in Sagittarius, and you have your black moon Lilith and oscillating Lilith in your 7th house. And so having your descendant in Sagittarius means it usually indicates what kind of partners you look for, what you find attractive in other people, because you don't have those aspects about yourself. Having your 7th house in Sagittarius would indicate that you don't want to be limited. You don't want to be restricted by other people's expectations of you. You want to be able to explore. You want to be able to expand. And that might be difficult when you have your moon in Scorpio, because Scorpio wants to own, wants to hold, wants some deep merging attachment. But 7th house Sagittarius is like, well, can we do that and also like be free to do whatever we want? So you also like having black moon Lilith in the 7th house. So that the Liliths in the chart all represent, there's 4 different Liliths. They each represent like a phase of Lilith's journey where she's in exile. Black Moon Lilith is how we transmute our distorted image back to a healthy expression. Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius is distorting the image of meaninglessness. Like, Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius is finding meaning, transmuting your shadow and being able to find meaning. And for you, that happens through how you interact with others. And your oscillating Lilith, which is with Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith is, they're each not like physical bodies. The oscillating Lilith is one that moves around on retrogrades, and she's connected with Black Moon Lilith. So both of these, not everyone has them together because she can move to a different sign. So having this together indicates that there's a deep transformational process of Black Moon Lilith, like when you interact with others. And when we have ownership of our Lilith, it doesn't mean that we're demonic bitches. It means that we have ownership and we won't allow ourselves to be victimized by other people's expectations and other people's beliefs, because Jupiter and Sagittarius are all about people's belief structures. So for you, that's even more relevant. Like, when you find meaning, to not allow other people to villainize you for that. And having Black Moon Lilith in the 7th house. Let me see. Your Lilith is at 21 degrees Sagittarius. And your ascendant is at 11 degrees. So it's within 10 degrees, but having Lilith oppose the ascendant means that, like, how you appear on the surface and how it ends up once you're interacting with others on a personal level, that Lilith comes out to reclaim her power. So the 8th house is the house of Scorpio. It's the house of transformation. The 7th house is the house of partnerships. The 8th house is where shit gets real, where assets are merged. And you have Juno, which is the loyalty asteroid, the marriage asteroid. You have Uranus, which is the first outer planet, which represents breaking free of restriction and limitation and reaching a higher level of, like, Christ consciousness, perception. And you also have Neptune, which is the second outer planet, which represents our mysticism, our spirituality. I call him the Alice in Wonderland planet because he represents where things are not always what they seem. And to have Uranus and Neptune both in the sign of Capricorn in your 8th house. So Capricorn is the sign that's ruled by Saturn. It's our limits, our structure, it's our responsibility. And Uranus and Neptune are like the antithesis of responsibility. But to have these energies together in Capricorn means that your generation, because these are both generational planets as well, your generation has the ability to bring outer concepts that are out of the norm, revolutionary, unusual, and bring them into form and bring them into daily life. And for you, that is how you transmute through your shadow. And so when you do merge with people and you do merge with others, it always takes on this otherworldly next level experience. And where your Juno is intertwined with this, it's like that's somewhere where you are loyal to. You're loyal to going through these experiences that allow you to tap into this next level innovative creative space within you so you can evolve and move beyond. And have a sense, like the 8th house and the 2nd house, okay, there's always about what we value and how we allow possessions and ownership to validate our sense of existence. And so having your Chiron in your 2nd house, and your Chiron opposes this energy in Capricorn. So, and your South Node. Well, your South Node is a little further, but your Chiron opposes this energy in Capricorn. Then your Chiron opposes your North Node. Your Chiron opposes your Saturn and your Mercury. And so having Chiron oppose this energy in your 8th house means that, like, rebalancing your sense of wounding through finding value in things that are not just physical items, being able to find value in your relationships, in your interactions with others by reaching this next level of perception. And your North Node is in your 9th house. So when we get to the very end, or the end of your 8th house, I'm sorry. That's the beginning of your 9th house. And then you have your Saturn at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and you have your Mercury at 1 degrees of Aquarius. So this is all in your 9th house. So this is the house of Jupiter and Sagittarius. This is also where your Well-Demoth Dark Moon Lilith is, and your Sun. So you have your Well-Demoth Dark Moon Lilith at 2 degrees Aquarius, your Mercury at 1 degree Aquarius, your Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius, and your North Node in Capricorn. So all of this Aquarian energy still is conjunct your North Node in Capricorn. And so Well-Demoth Dark Moon Lilith represents the stage of Lilith's journey where she feels hurt, where she constantly feels haunted by feeling rejected, by feeling neglected. So Well-Demoth Dark Moon Lilith is where we transmute our pain into creative expression, or else it takes over us. And so to have Well-Demoth Dark Moon Lilith with Saturn and your Mercury indicates that through your communication, through finding structure and stability and achieving, is how you will transmute this darker elements of Lilith. Because Well-Demoth is like the crone aspect. And so when you have Well-Demoth and Saturn together, it can feel very like restrictive on your Mercury. But because your North Node is there, like this is like your soul saying to you, like, this is the lesson. This is what you are working towards. And like our North Node and our Saturn is always like where we feel most vulnerable, because it's not a comfortable feeling. And having them together, like having Saturn with your North Node may feel like at first like there's a constant judge. Like you're constantly being fucking judged. Like you constantly judge yourself. But having Saturn conjunct your North Node also gives you like this extra sense of like, this is like a structured energy that is going to allow you to build upon. And having your Mercury there, and it's in Aquarius, like that ties in with like the innovation of this energy, like finding innovating ways of communicating, and that's how you find your structure, and that's like how you find your beliefs, because the 9th house is the house of Sagittarius, it's the house ruled by Jupiter, it's the house of your belief structures. And since you're overcoming the shadow of meaninglessness in the sign of Sagittarius, to have this concentrated energy in the house of Sagittarius, and your Sun is there as well, like Sun in Aquarius in the 9th house, like being able to like philosophically as well as physically travel to wherever it is that you find meaning. And having the Sun in the 9th house, and your Sun is at 17 degrees Aquarius, and your midheaven is at 21 degrees Aquarius, so it's in 5 degrees of your midheaven. So the midheaven is the 4th angle of the chart. It represents our public self, our career, like what we do and like the broader scale. So having your Sun in the 10th house means that like how you illuminate, how you shine your individuality is all tied into like what you bring to the world at large. Having your Moon and Pluto squaring your Sun and your midheaven, overcoming self-doubt, overcoming self-destruction, overcoming feelings of oppression and darkness. And because Aquarius and Scorpio are both fixed signs, being able to move beyond your own perceptions of stubbornness, like your own perceptions of what's possible, like changing those belief structures, like, because once you change your core belief structures, it changes the whole course of your life. If you believe it's not possible, it won't be. If you believe it's possible, it becomes possible. And so overcoming those aspects of Sun square Pluto, also like negative self-talk, or like just again tying in with your belief structures, like changing the way that you see yourself, changing the way that you see yourself in the world. You also, okay, so the MC, or the midheaven, is the cusp of the 10th house. Yours goes from Aquarius into Pisces. You have your natal Venus in Pisces. And so Venus it's our affection, it's our love relationships, it's our divine feminine energy, but it's also our money. It's our values. It's what we find beautiful. It's how we beautify. It's our aesthetics. It's our whole sense of self-worth. And in Pisces, Venus is very happy in Pisces. But because the nature of Pisces is such a nebulous Alice in Wonderland energy, and it's mutable, having your Venus in Pisces means that you might fall for the wrong people. Having savior-victim dynamics in relationships. Venus in Pisces, even though your Sun is in Aquarius, like Venus in Pisces can give you a very changeable energy when it comes to like your finances and your interactions with others. And your Venus squares your Mars. And so balancing your divine feminine energy with your divine masculine energy. And since your Mars is in the 12th house, which is the house of Pisces and Neptune, and having your Venus square that, it's like balancing your affection and your aggression. Are you too forward? Are you too submissive? And so finding a balance between those. And having your Venus in your 10th house is a very beneficial placement to have, because Venus and Jupiter are both the benefic planets of the zodiac. They're both positive. But to have Venus in Pisces in your 10th house means that you can tap into your creativity and be able to bring that to what you do. And your part of fortune and your asteroid Lilith are connected. You see the exact degree. Your asteroid Lilith is at 11 degrees of Pisces, and your Venus is at 10 degrees of Pisces. So asteroid Lilith represents the stage in Lilith's journey where she first flees the Garden of Eden, where she's like, fuck y'all, I don't want to be here anyway. So Lilith is always where, asteroid Lilith is where we're going to rebel. And we're going to feel comfortable rebelling and being an individual. So having asteroid Lilith on your Venus gives you a more sense of authority and autonomy than you would if your Venus was not colored with asteroid Lilith. Your part of fortune indicates the part of your chart where you become fortunate. And it's a very Jupiterian kind of feeling. So to have your part of fortune in your 10th house with your Lilith and your Venus is very beneficial, though it squares your Mars. The 11th house is the house of the collective. It's like the 10th house is the career, what you do for the world. This is like how it affects the world. So you have your karma asteroid in the 11th house and Eris, which Eris is, it's like a feminine Mars energy. So the karma asteroid indicates like that which must be done. And having your karma asteroid in the 11th house in Aries with Eris means tapping into your divine feminine warrior energy and being able to bring that and share that with the collective. The 12th house is the house of the subconscious, as we talked about, but you also have your Vesta in your 12th house in Taurus. So Vesta represents the Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins were the ones who kept the fires burning. And so Vesta is like where we're constantly giving of ourselves, where we're constantly giving forth effort. And so having Vesta in the 12th house in Taurus indicates that in your subconscious mind that you go through periods of, the planets are always like in motion. It's constantly, it's nothing ever happening at once. It's everything happening all together. But having Vesta in the 12th house means that you're dedicated and that you spend a lot of mental energy going over your values, going over what it is that makes you feel secure. So I want to take you through the transits. The transits are what's happening now in relation to the natal placements. And so where do I even begin? Well, the one that you've been feeling most acutely for the past 2 years is Neptune has been transiting over your natal Venus. And I guess it goes back 4 years because before that, Neptune was squaring your natal Mars. And Neptune right now is also squaring your natal ascendant. And so when you have Neptune transit over your natal Venus, all of those themes I mentioned before of like savior-victim dynamics, like falling for the wrong people, allowing yourself to be, because Neptune represents like our escapism and our sense of delusion. Like after you go through your Neptune transit, you'll have such a deeper spiritual understanding, but you'll also have a deep understanding of how you can fucking delude yourself. And you're like, why did I trust that person? Why did I believe that person? Why did I think that was the thing that was going to make me feel whole? So when we go through Neptune transits, also because when Neptune entered into Pisces in 2012, since then, people with dominant Pisces placements may have gone through twin flame aspects with people or karmic relationships or false twin flames. So having to interact with energy vampires and learning karmic lessons from that has happened for people with heavy Pisces placements. So with Neptune right now squaring your ascendant, that may give you a sense of confusion about your identity, confusion about how how it is you want to be seen in the world and how it is that you want to interact with the world. And because Neptune is an outer planet, the outer planets move really fucking slow. So when we go through a Neptune transit, we go through it for like years, and it's like takes you through so many different levels of emotionalism, and it makes your experience of reality like rubbing Vaseline over your sunglasses. Like you just can't see shit straight. And so that's one of the more difficult aspects that Neptune brings. The positive aspect is that Neptune brings us a heightened sense of our own divinity and our own ability to perceive how we are all connected, how we are all part of a larger whole. So another really important transit you're having right now. So the nodes of your moon, 26 degrees Cancer South Node, 26 degrees Capricorn North Node. So the nodes of the moon, for everybody, the transiting nodes just moved in to Cancer and Capricorn. The North Node just entered Cancer. The South Node just entered Capricorn. So you're going through what is known as the reverse nodal return. So the North Node is transiting over your South Node. And the South Node is transiting over your North Node. So this is like acts as like a reflective purging time of like when you are coming into realization of what it is exactly like you need to let go of, what you need to embrace. And because the sun right now is transiting your North Node, that really lightens the heaviness that this might bring into your life. But having the sun right now conjunct your North Node in your 9th house may bring very beneficial energy to like your broader sense, but having the North Node transit your South Node in the 3rd house might bring changes to like your everyday life and your interactions. Right now, Jupiter is transiting over your natal descendant and Venus is approaching your natal descendant. This is a very positive aspect because Jupiter is transiting in your 7th house. However, Jupiter is now approaching your natal Black Moon Lilith, and so when Jupiter transits your Lilith, you again, this sense of finding meaning and releasing all that does not fit into that is all coming into play. And Jupiter right now opposing your ascendant, Venus right now is opposing your Mars. So balancing that masculine, feminine energy, and Venus right now and Jupiter right now squaring your natal Venus. So like your belief structures, like your self-worth, like for everybody, Jupiter squaring Neptune, but for you, it's happening on your Venus. So it's a very personal, because Venus and Mars are the personal planets. Like there's so much tied into like your divine feminine energy, and like to have Jupiter square that, it's like makes you question like, what is it that I was building my beliefs on? Like, what is it that I believe to be true about myself? What is it that I believe to be true about my value? And with Venus squaring Venus, same thing. It's like really taking you and like having you understand things from a deeper spiritual level. But it's like when these outer planet transits happen, it's like they allow us to reach this next level of perception, but they do it by taking away our comfort zone, by diluting our reality. And so the positive aspect, though, is like Venus and Jupiter are both beneficial planets. Like they bring us luck, they bring us expansion, they bring us beauty, they bring us all of these things that feel good. But when they make challenging aspects, it's like those things come through a challenge. So right now, Black Moon Lilith is, I think she's exactly on your natal sun, because your sun's 17 degrees Aquarius. Black Moon Lilith is at 18 degrees. So yeah, so you're right now coming through your rebirth of your Lilith transit. So for the past month when Lilith was approaching your sun, it might have brought up a lot of purging. You might have felt really tired and drained because like all of this shit was like coming up. But now as Lilith is exactly conjunct your sun, like you're going through a transformation. You're going through a rebirth. Some of this heaviness is lifting. Saturn and Mercury are both conjunct your natal Neptune and Uranus. And Mars in Aries is squaring this. And so Mars is squaring your Neptune. Mars is squaring Uranus, where Saturn and Mercury are transiting. And so the combination of all this energy can bring a lot of frustration. And like Saturn square your natal Uranus can bring a lot of unpredictability, or you may just acting on impulse. But Mars square Saturn, Mars square Mercury is like this frustration, like us wanting to move forward, but us being pushed back by something that is trying to help us restructure. Also right now, okay, so this is where Uranus is in Aries. He's going to soon be moving into Taurus. So soon Uranus is going to be exactly oppose your Ceres, and then soon oppose your vertex. So this will bring change into your life. And so I want to talk to you, we're going to talk more about the transits when we have our Skype session, but I just wanted to show you something really quick that you have in your chart. That's easier if I show you. Okay, so you have these two aspects in your chart. This is called a yod. So a yod is known as the finger of God. It's between two planets that are sextile each other, and then they inconjunct or quincunx another planet. So this energy between your ascendant in Gemini and your Jupiter in Leo, that works in harmony together. So how you appear and how you communicate and your beliefs and how you interact with people, that works positively. And then it conflicts with this Uranus energy in your 8th house. And so you have a yod that goes between your ascendant Jupiter and your natal Uranus. So the yod is the finger of God. It represents like where we feel haunted, like by this special purpose that we must fulfill. So the activation point of the yod is always exactly opposite. This is known as like the fulcrum or the apex planet. And so your activation point is at 11 degrees of Cancer. And so early July is when this is activated and most intense. But right now, like that is exactly like where Saturn is transiting over this natal Uranus aspect. So Saturn transits Uranus, it's like the positive aspect is allowing this unfathomable, uncontrollable energy to have a sense of structure, to have a sense of reality. And so this is huge. I'm going to have a printout for you that I'm going to send so you can further understand what having a yod means, what having Uranus as your yod apex, and then having Saturn transit that. So you have a second yod in your chart, and that's between your natal Venus, your Uranus, and your natal Jupiter. So I have two yods in my chart that cross each other, like very similar to this. So your Venus in Pisces and your Uranus in Capricorn work together. These are sextile planets. So this is like the base of like your yod. And then this is like it shoots through this energy. So it's like Jupiter, like being able to expand like your belief structures and communicate that. Like that's all part of like your soul's purpose. But the thing with the fucking yod is it's all about timing. And so it's like when you do something like you're indecisive and then you finally decide to do it, but then it's too late. You want to go do this thing and then you get there, but then it's like too late. So it's like just missing the mark, like just not being able to fully bring things into manifestation. This second yod that you have, the one in the green, your activation point for this is at 7 degrees of Aquarius. So this happens like the end of January, early February is when this is activated by the sun. And so to have these yods in your chart indicate that it's like they say that having a yod is like one of the most difficult and frustrating things to have because it's like getting the energy to work together. This is mutable water. This is cardinal earth. This is fixed fire. So getting mutable water, cardinal earth, and fixed fire, like to all agree and do things together. It's like having 3 people in a car that are totally different and deciding what to play on the fucking CD player and do that without them arguing. Or it's like, how do we get this to work together? And so I'm going to be able to send you some more information to explain that to you and how the transits affect this. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to our Skype session together. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.